Okay, here we are.
Hello, welcome to the post-truth edition of Session. None of the music we played tonight actually existed at
No.
all, and the artists don't exist. It's all a creation of the media.
Quite a lot of looking back on many people who've disappeared in the last month, I think, which was a bit sad, but an excuse to play some great music. And we started off with a Larry Coryell album called Spaces. I think he passed away last week. I think this is his second album. Very incredible band. Billy Cobham on drums, Miroslav Vitus on bass, Chick Corea on piano, and also John McLaughlin on second guitar. And we listened to the track called Spaces (Infinite), which is probably the most fusiony track on the album. And yes, sounds pretty amazing for 1969.
Yeah, I like his early records. Larry Coryell's records. It's a great one with Chuck Rainey and Bernard Purdie, which is really good. I can't remember the actual name of the record. So, nobody actually recently passed away on this record, but Chick Corea made me think of Stan Getz and made me think of Captain Marvel, which was kind of almost like one of the things I think that contributed to Return to Forever being created. And that's with Ayato on percussion, Stanley Clarke on bass, and Tony Williams on drums. Great stuff. There's also a fantastic YouTube clip, and I played the track La Fiesta. There's a great YouTube clip of them playing this live as well. This was on Verve.
Is that a Chick Corea tune?
I don't know. I think it might be actually.
Yeah, I've got a feeling it is.
It might be. It is a Chick Corea. In fact, they're all Chick Corea tunes virtually on the record. Yeah.
Well, carrying on with the Chick Corea thread, we moved to another Latin-inflected number, and this is off Stanley Clarke's debut album called Children of Forever, which also, features Chick Corea and also Dee Dee Bridgewater and Andy Bay on vocals, Lenny White on drums, and Stanley Clarke on acoustic bass before he'd moved on to the electric. Great stuff.
Very good. Andy Bay's a great singer, I think.
Yes.
Also is Dee Dee Bridgewater, mind you, as well.
Indeed.
Staying with a slightly kind of Latin-inflected vibe, went for probably one of my favourite records, actually, out of the cool Gil Evans, and played La Nevada, which is actually unusually for Gil, written by him himself. Just a classic band, beautifully recorded as well.
Incredible sound.
Ron Carter, Jimmy Nepper, Johnny Coles is a featured trumpet player. I always think it's a really underrated musician. Just great sound on this, on Impulse. Classic record.
And again, I don't feel actually anyone's particularly interested in my hi-fi system, but we should say that there has been another upgrade since the last video. We've now got a separate quad 90 power amp and a quad, I think it's called a 50. It's this very weird, amazing,
PlayStation.
like a PlayStation, which is your sort of handheld controller thing. Anyway,
Sounding very good.
Sounding very good. Yeah. Sorry, hi-fi break there. Carrying on. Well, I guess the Gil Evans connection was Miles really, and this is a is it a MoFi? Yeah, a beautiful, lovely mastered version of In a Silent Way. We listened to In a Silent Way, which sounded great. Interesting.
Although slightly weirdly, it didn't mention at the time, it sounded like it sound clips at one point, which is a bit weird to get from a...
Clipped?
Yeah, on the trumpet. There's a bit of a clipping sound on the trumpet, which is kind of quite odd for what's meant to be an analogue remaster.
Wow.
Maybe. But on the whole, it sounded amazing.
It did.
Yeah.
And so just looking at our pile of records, there didn't seem to be very many records, but we played quite a lot of tracks that went on for nearly a whole side. This one is nearly a whole side. And obviously this is the, absolute classic album with Herbie, Chick Corea, Wayne Shorter, Dave Holland, Joe Zawinul, John McLaughlin, Tony Williams. anybody who doesn't own this album,
Got to have it.
you've got to have it. Sublime record.
Definitely. Then moved to Europe. The next one. We started off with definitely jazzy.
Very jazzy.
Started off jazzy.
Very jazzy and very kind of pretty laid back.
Yeah, no, definitely. Played Off Limits, which is by the Kenny Clark, Frankie Boland big band, which was a European big band that featured, well, as well as featuring Americans, of course, like Kenny Clark, featured some of the best players in Europe at the time. And this is called Off Limits. It came out of Polydor, but effectively it's out of the whole MPS kind of stable, same studio, same recording engineers and so forth. Played the track Sakara, which is by Frankie Boland, and featured Sahib Shihab on flute on there as well. Who's another American.
Really nice.
Great track. One of the big favourite of the UK DJ Giles Peterson, that track.
There was a sort of interesting kind of percussive shimmering bell thing at the beginning of that got me thinking of this Yusef Lateef album, Eastern Sounds, and in particular the track called Plum Blossom, which was just so minimal. Has Yusef playing, what was it? Something that sounds like some kind of weird. Oh, it's a Chinese globular flute. Really, really minimal. Really lovely album. That's John did me a fantastic double CD Yusef Lateef compilation a couple of months ago, and I've just sort of been really discovering his back catalogue. What a great artist!
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Really was one of, again, really nice little documentary on him on YouTube. Actually, beautiful. Seems to be a very kind of peaceful, wonderful man actually. And then slightly bizarre, both Mark and I both bought this in the last couple of weeks. I haven't had this on CD for a long time, Cornbread, but I picked up a vinyl copy. Lee Morgan, we played it at the last session actually as well. And I'm reading this great book on Lee Morgan called Delightful Lee, which is a really excellent kind of biography. A lot of stuff about the music as well. Mostly about the music, in fact, rather than about his life. So this is Lee Morgan, Jackie McLean, Hank Mobley, Herbie Hancock, Larry Ridley, Billy Higgins, and played the track Kiora, which is a bit of a jazz standard, really. I mean, kind of a gorgeous kind of tune. Great playing from Lee. And this was slightly not quite as exploratory as Search for the New Land, which I played last week, and some of his later stuff, but it's a bit of a classic record, really.
And this is one of the new Blue Note pressings.
Yeah, which I think I still, we talked about this at a previous session.
Yeah.
I think they sound great. I mean, people spend lots of money on Music Matters, 44 RPM stuff, and I think these sound great, actually. Get a good copy of the 75th ones. They're brilliantly mastered. Really good.
We had a break, and we came back with a sort of definitely the post-Trumpian selection here. And I sort of realised I didn't actually have a copy of Burning, which is the second Bob Marley and the Wailers album after
Or just
Catch a
the
Fire.
Wailers, actually, isn't it?
Well, it's just the Wailers. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
just the Wailers before the split. So this features, kind of almost equally Bob, Peter Tosh, and Bunny Wailer. And really fantastic album. And we listened to Get Up, Stand Up. Yeah, class.
Keeping with the rhythms of resistance. Then went for Dennis Brown, not much to see here. Revolution, which came out on the Taxi label,
Yeah.
Sly and Robbie production, great singer. And some lovely bass playing from Robbie Shakespeare on this track as well.
And
unusually kind of random in the playing, really. Not
Very loose.
Yeah,
and,
very
and
loose.
sort of some kind of what they call double stops.
So that's double stops on there as well.
Double stops.
Don't often hear double stops on a reggae record.
No, you don't.
Yeah.
And as ever with a lot of these Taxi 12 inches, you get your vocal version and then it seamlessly goes into the dub version.
And there's a even longer dub on the second side as well. Yeah.
Basically, yesterday morning, I'd woken up to hear that Donald Trump had banned the BBC, CNN, the Daily Mail, and the New York Times from his press conference, and I just thought, what the hell's going on?
in the world?
And I posted a track, this track actually, from the Isley Brothers and Fight the Power. Then went to sort of play my vinyl version, which had a horrible scratch throughout the first track. And got very depressed. Went out into town and met the Norwegian baker in the market who just happened to have this record in the front of his record rack for a fiver. So it had to be played. And what a great track it is. And what a great album this is. Fantastic album. Absolute classic, like 1975, Isley Brothers. Some furious funk tracks, amazing Ernie Isley psychedelic guitar, and some incredible ballads.
Yeah. I remember Mark sang at another session ages ago that when you play some of the, just the way the drums sound, particularly on their record, they sound like they've already been sampled.
Yes.
I can't remember what the track was. So I had some Isleys in the box, so you always never need an excuse to play two Isley Brother records, really. And this is an early 80s one, which is kind of less well known. And you can start hearing the kind of 80s production coming in, but it's still got Ronnie, amazing voice on it. And I played the track I Do It All For You, and the album is The Real Deal. Yeah, I think I have all of their records, actually. One of the few people I have everything.
And they're records which you can always pick up very cheaply.
Yeah.
I had a great trip to London with my daughter last week, or week before last. And during the trip, we visited a number of Soho record shops, which I have to say were all very overpriced. And we visited Sounds of the Universe, which also is a bit disappointing. But having said that, the reason for me mentioning it is this is a 7-inch that Sounds of the Universe have put out, and it's a re-release of a classic 2-step rare groove track by Arnold Blair called Trying to Get Next to You, which I've only ever seen on bootlegs before. I think it's a Leroy Hudson, yeah, it is a Leroy Hudson production, so it's very much that kind of early 70s kind of, Chicago sound, really, really nice. Arnold Blair has an amazing falsetto, and we actually were just really checking whether he actually was a man.
Yeah.
But there's a lovely female sort of co-lead on this. But yeah,
Who's I really recognise, but I can't remember who it is.
Yeah.
I think it's a classic. Might be Linda Clifford, actually.
Ah.
Which would make sense.
Yeah.
So then we moved on to another
yes.
dedication, and went to remember Leon Ware, really, who's a fantastic musician, responsible for all kinds of, not just as a performer, but as a writer. Well, Marvin Gaye's "I Want You" is practically an album, a collaboration between the two. So I played a track, "If I Ever Lose His Heaven," which has got this amazing, written by Leon, him, Al Jarreau singing backing vocals on it, and I really love the trombone solo on this, which is, I think, Frank Rossellino at the beginning of it as well. Fantastic production on Quincy albums. I mean, they always sound amazing, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just mid-70s, I think. It wasn't 75 or something.
And from the same year,
Yeah.
another somebody else who died recently is Al Jarreau, who also featured on that. And this is his debut album, produced by Dave Grusin, called "We Got By." For me, I think this is my favourite Al Jarreau album. He's got an incredibly funky band. Hello, Joe.
My phone's just woken up.
We listened to the track called "You Don't See Me." Highly recommended album, this. Al Jarreau at his sort of jazziest and funkiest, I'd say.
Definitely. Stayed with Al Jarreau, and first CD of the evening, played a track off Hiram Bullock's
I think worst
album.
cover so far.
One of the worst covers so far, definitely. Hiram looking quite buff, actually, even though it's a bit of a weird. From his album "Give It What You Got," and played the track "You Send Me," which is obviously a cover of Sam Cooke from early 80s, with great guitar playing from Hiram Bullock and a great vocal from Al. Definitely 80s production sound on it, but actually not too intrusive, actually. You can hear DX7 warbling away in the background, but that's about it. So Hiram Bullock, very underrated, never really, I mean, his own album, there's 2 tracks on this which are good, and the rest of them are absolute stinkers, so be warned.
We then, carrying on with the RIP selection, we had Cyclopean, which features the drums of Jackie Liebsite from Cannes. Also features Ermin Schmidt, who is the keyboard player, and Jono Podmore and Bernd Friedman and this was a 4-track EP that came out on the Spoon label in about 2013, 2014. And we listened to a track called Knuckles, and just a really interesting kind of confectionery of these 4 players. No one's particularly taking the lead, but they just all gel really well, and the sounds are really interesting. So I think it's still quite easy to pick up, but great
It's
percussion.
Bert Friedman on it as well.
He is, yeah.
Didn't realise that. Okay, there was even more of a connection, I thought, between that one and this one. Jackie Lieberzeit and Bernd Friedman had a long collaboration. They made about 5 or 6 records, I think, and under the Secret Rhythms name. Bernd Friedman used to be in a band called Flanger. I don't know if people remember Flanger. And so this is from the 5th of the series, and the track's just called 10509. Basically, Bernd Friedman playing a number of different instruments, and Jackie mostly playing drums, with other guest musicians on there as well. Great, really interesting record. Some of them have got, there's quite a lot of guests, and one album's got David Sylvian as a guest on it as well, which is pretty significant. Yeah.
Nice cover as well.
Yeah. Cover designed by the people I used to share a studio with.
Ah.
Stylo Rouge.
Staying with Jackie Lieberzeit, this is an album that I just picked up in the last month, and it's Cannes Sour Delight, which is by this time they had Roscoe G and Rebop in the band, both ex of Traffic, and we listened to the first track on side 1. I can't remember what it's called actually. It's called Don't Say No, which is a very kind of, it's just a classic kind of Cannes motoric beat. This is a great album. Actually, I really recommend this. I didn't know this album. Like, people sort of tend to kind of talk about that kind of early 70s period as being the kind of peak. But there's still some great music that was made later in the 70s.
Especially this record,
Especially
actually.
this record.
Yeah. Well, Mute, who put out all the reissued Cannes stuff, had an offer before Christmas. They had all of the Cannes vinyl £10 off, so they were all about £8 or £10. So I could basically replace all my Cannes collection and played another. And I think this is probably, along with Take Omega, my favourite Cannes record from Future Days, and I played Moonshake. Really nice job remastering. It sounds much better than, actually sounds better than the original vinyl, much better. But another classic Cannes album. Unfortunately, the offer's no longer there. They're all sold out. Which is
Also 2 weeks ago, the Welsh guitarist Deke Leonard from the band Man also died. And this is the last studio album of the classic Man lineup from the mid-70s, which is called The Welsh Connection, that features Deke and Mickey Jones, Phil Ryan, and a bass player who, John McKenzie, and of course Terry Williams on drums.
great drumming.
Very good drumming. We listened to the track called The Ride and the View. Sort of, kind of psychedelic road music.
Yeah. I think I couldn't really think of anything to follow.
No, you
Cannes, so I went off on a tangent and went for Frank Zappa from Waka Jawaka. Played Waka Jawaka itself, the title track. Just kind of compositionally, he was just amazing, Zappa. You have to kind of remind yourself just periodically what an amazing composer he was. There's some very weird. The whole thing sounds on the surface like almost like a jazz track, but then you hear all these little things underneath, which you certainly wouldn't get on a jazz track.
No.
Particularly the long mini Moog solo from Don Preston.
And a very strange solo from Ainsley Dunbar.
Yeah, some weird, great drumming from Ainsley Dunbar, because he's a Brit.
Yes.
From the blues boom.
And following on from great
So
British
maybe that
drummers,
was the connection.
that was the connection. Oh yeah, Terry Williams.
Yeah,
Ainsley
yeah,
Dunbar.
yeah.
Bill Bruford. This is Bill Bruford's, I think it's first solo album, called Feels Good to Me. Not a great cover. And I imagine must have been extremely odd when it came out in 1977, given what else was going on. But this is the band that featured Bill Bruford, Dave Stewart, Annette Peacock, Jeff Berlin, and also Kenny Wheeler guesting. It's a pretty incredible band. And
It's very controversial at the time. All the prog heads really hated Annette Peacock. They didn't like her at all.
we listened to the track called Adios a la Pasada, Goodbye to the Past.
Sounded very good.
It did sound great, actually.
It's a great
sort of strangely kind of seemed to quite fit after Zappa.
Yeah, yeah.
Just again a group of musicians not doing what they were supposed to be doing.
Yeah. So remembering another one, somebody else who's passed away, wanted to credit John Wetton, who was the bass player in, among other bands, Family and King Crimson. And you saw the King Crimson band with John Wetton and a lot. They were played a lot around where I lived at the time, and they were just incredibly powerful. I don't think I've ever heard such a powerful band, really. Coming from, and this is from the Night Watch, which is a live double album that Fripp put out about 10 years ago, I think it was, and played the track called The Night Watch. So this is a classic lineup with David Cross, John Wetton, Bruford and Robert Fripp. And of course, before that, Jamie Muir was the drummer, who came out of the improv scene as well. So yeah, I mean, I obviously loved the King Crimson records this time, but the live was really where they happened.
Where was that now?
Yeah.
Well, another, as John said, John Wetton also had a brief sojourn with Family, the UK sort of late 60s, early 70s. I guess people call them a prog band, but I don't. They didn't really fit any particular category. They're kind of just really doing their own thing. This is the album called Fearless, and we listened to a track, which was the first track on side 2, called Take Your Partners, which actually sort of opened like a kind of Electric Miles groove, and then as soon as Roger Chapman came on vocals, sounded completely somewhere else.
Like a punk record.
Exactly, but yeah, I do recommend there's a run of about 4 Family albums from the late 60s to the early 70s that are definitely worth checking.
I guess the classics of Music in a Doll's House and Family Entertainment, aren't they?
Yeah, well, I do love the one with Burlesque on
Oh,
it.
that's true.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Good stuff. So keeping with the English eccentric kind of vibe, we haven't played Talk at a session for quite a long time. So played The Rainbow, Spirit of Eden, which is basically one of my favourite records, I think. It's absolutely fantastic record. I've got 3 versions. This is the version I didn't have before, which is the, I think, pressing on Parlophone, which came out a few years ago, which sounds amazing. Very nice.
And there's a great series of YouTube interviews with the engineer. Or was he the producer?
Phil Brown, no, he's the engineer. Yeah,
engineer.
Yeah.
Just sort of talking about the process that they went on, and which I really recommend, actually.
It's very unusual. I mean, this album has, as well as kind of got Danny Thompson and got Hugh Davis, who of course played with Jamie Muir in various kind of lineups around the same time, improv stuff. And yeah, very good. So if you don't know Talk, well, you should do, really.
Yeah.
There's no excuse.
Sort of seen somehow in the same kind of breath as a UK kind of post-punk, well, post-rock really, not post-punk, post-rock band is Bark Psychosis. I just can't find this anywhere on vinyl, and even on CD it seems to be incredibly expensive. But anyway, this is their album Hex. And we listened to the track called Pendulum Man, which is the last track, which is incredibly, you kind of almost drifted off.
Yeah, definitely.
Really,
I did drift off.
It was amazing.
Yeah, very nice.
Yeah, really beautiful. Kind of ambient guitar.
Very nice record.
Space music.
Keeping with the blissed out vibe, went back and had a bit more Jackie Lieberzeit, actually. Went for Michael Rother from Cats and Music and played Cats and Music 10 off this, actually. This was, I think, his 3rd solo album after leaving Neu. And yeah, just very, very simple. I mean, almost thinking at the time, almost the total opposite of the Frank Zappa, really. That one and a half chords, probably that, actually, the whole thing. And Jackie Lieberzeit playing some very, very motoric kind of drumming in the background. Nice records.
Yeah. Again, a sort of boundary breaker. This is a great album, Ornette Coleman's Science Fiction. We listened to the track called All My Life, which just kind of completely uncategorizable music, and particularly when you realise that it was made in about 1970 or something. Features an amazing vocal from Asha Putley. Yeah, just, I mean, the whole album is just a complete brain opener. No two tracks sound the same, but it's just very adventurous, and definitely science fiction was the right name, I think, for kind of very progressive, future-looking music.
Yeah. There's a record called Broken Shadows, which is the other half of that session, which is equally good, actually, which came out just after it. People are always trying to find a way into Sun Ra, actually, and there's two nice compilations that came out on Strut last year, I think it was, and this one was put together by Marsha Allen, and it's called In the Orbit of Ra. And I've got most of the tracks on this on other records, but it's really nicely put together, nicely compiled, good notes, just nice job really. There's also one which was came out around the same time, which Giles Peterson put together, which isn't, I think, quite as good for some reason. And this one has got one or two tracks that are not on any other record as well. Play the track Island in the Sun, extended version of Island in the Sun, which is just like a kind of another one to drift off to. Basically, yeah. But yeah, so I know there's a lot of Sun Ra heads on who watch this, but if you're not and you want to weigh into Ra, this is a really good one actually. In the Orbit of Ra on Strut.
Well, I was in the Orbit of Ra, but for some reason I ended up in the Orbit of Chic as well. I've been really enjoying the track At Last I'm Free, both the Chic version and the Robert Wyatt cover version. But just a really, really beautiful song. And if you don't know it, doesn't sound like Le Freak.
No,
it's
a great song.
It's a beautiful kind of mid-tempo, almost like a ballad, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah, again, you can pick this album up very cheap. It's got a lot of classics on it.
I'm thinking we've got a bit out of whack here in terms of how many have you got left?
I've only got 2 left.
Oh, okay, no, we are on whack. Then went for some UK, I'm not sure what the connection was actually, some UK soul R&B. Went for
Chic to Omar.
Chic to Omar, yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
The whiskey had kicked in, I think.
I think he probably had actually put out a whiskey bottle. Yeah, this is from his album For Pleasure, which is actually partly produced by Dexter Wansel, I think, actually. This is one he made in the States, I think. He's got a new album out. He's an unsung hero. I mean, kind of rated by people like D'Angelo and all these kind of people as being a real original. So this is from his album For Pleasure, which I think was probably mid-90s, I guess. Yeah, 94. Yeah. Good.
Sounded very
local boy,
very fresh.
Knew his dad, which is always
right.
Byron Lyfouk.
He also went to college in Canterbury.
Did he?
Yeah.
Okay.
Round the corner. Again, not quite sure how he ended up with this album, which is Bad, Bad, Not Good, and their album 4. Nice picture of the boys in their swimming towels here. Yeah, I didn't know much about this, except lots of people were sort of raving about it, particularly on our BBC 6 Music. It was like one of the albums of the year. As John said, doesn't sound like an album of the year. But
Not when you think of Beyonce came out last year, and God knows what else.
But actually, there's some great music on it, and we listened to the last track on side 1, which is called Time Moves Slow, which actually had a sort of like an early 70s rare groove vibe to it in a way. But
yeah,
it's just interesting how so many people are trying to sound really old at the moment.
Yeah. Reminded me a little bit of the Jim James solo album that came out, which was Jim James from My Morning Jacket, although I think that's better than that, actually. Similar kind of... That album does have Chris Day playing drums on it, which always helps. So then went to remember two more people actually who passed away as well recently. One's David Axelrod, who was a producer, amazing producer actually. I mean, kind of the source of thousands and thousands of hip hop beats. I think actually. I mean, and this is from I think it was his second solo record. Well, second record on his own. Basically, most of his records are solo records, and this came out late 60s. It's called Songs of Experience. Again, like Songs of Innocence, based on William Blake poems. Came out on Capitol. Has a very distinctive sounds of Earl Palmer on drums and Carol Kay on bass. And also, I think it's got Howard Roberts playing. Not sure who the guitar player was on it, but very fuzzed out psychedelic guitar sound.
Carol Kay playing a bass with a pick.
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
Also around this time he was doing solo albums with David McCullum from The Man from
Yeah,
U.N.C.L.E.
that's right. And of course,
And the Electric Prunes.
That's right. And produced the classic Black Messiah record, which Cannibal Adderley picked, which needs to feature in a session. Actually, I haven't bought that for a long time.
For no particular reason apart from the fact I just wanted to play something that seemed appropriate for my last track. And obviously Nick Drake has gone many years ago, but certainly hasn't gone recently. But the very beautiful track Riverman, with the gorgeous string arrangement from 5 Leaves Left. And yeah, well, what can you say?
Definitely.
Just if you don't know Nick Drake, you need to get to know him. Every album's a winner.
And then my last track was just a very gentle track from Willard Grant Conspiracy, who I have 3 or 4 records by. And of course, Robert Fisher, who's their singer and writes most of their stuff, also passed away much too young, actually, in the last few weeks ago. Great band. If you don't know them, they're kind of, I suppose they'd be called Americana, but they're a bit in the kind of lamb chop kind of vibe. Very, very good live. Very big in Europe, actually. And this is from the album Mojave. And I played the track called Right on Time. Very beautiful song.
And there you have it. So thank you for all the people who subscribe and comment.
Absolutely, great comments.
And I do think the VC is a corner of the world which is a good place and gives you hope. People can connect, communicate, share. So yeah, see you next time.
And also congratulations to Anders, who seems to have a second baby on the
Oh
way.
really?
Yeah.
Oh,
Which
congratulations,
is good.
Anders.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay,
See you
bye.
soon. Bye.